Okay, great.
You want to start us off?
Welcome everybody. I'm sorry. Welcome everybody to today's presentation. Cami is going to give us a lot of information, letting us know how we can help nonprofits get funded in a new way and a better way.
Mhm.
So I will turn everything over to Cami.
Well, thank you, Tony. We do attract the heart-centered, community-focused, and you are definitely one of those. And this isn't new information. It's been around for 100 years, but it is untapped and underutilized, and that is why I personally have made this my life's mission to make sure that all those who deserve, all those who need, all those who want to learn how this works can get the right information. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go over and share my screen. I'm going to go through about 25-minute presentation, maybe 30 minutes, and then we'll have some questions at the end. So here we go. Do, 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 do. And here is our presentation. Friends, we're talking about charitable gifting of real estate. And we call this the 101 because this is just the basic, like really high level overview. We do have something called the Charitable Real Estate Masterclass that is a deep dive. And Toni has the ability to bring 2 VIP guests with her twice a month on the first and the third Tuesday of the month. So if you're one of those lucky people that get a VIP ticket, we certainly hope you come and take a deeper dive with us. Now, we start the presentation off with giving you a nice image of what property that's being donated can look like. Friends, let's not be thinking about probate. Let's not be thinking about desperation or trying to unload garbage property. This is about human beings who love their world and want to leave it a better place. And in some cases, they do it because they want a good tax deduction, but 80% of them do it for the right reasons. Now, this is Jeff Bezos' ex-wife. She donated 2 houses that totaled $55 million. So let's just open our minds to the abundance that's happening in this world. And let's ask the question, what would your nonprofit, your community, your charity, your church, your soup kitchen, your animal rescue league, your children's focused nonprofit, what would you do with $600,000? This is a big question. And the reason that we ask that specific amount is because that is the average donation of equity from a piece of real estate. This is not about bake sales and barbecues and ballroom functions and selling raffle tickets and car shows and golf tournaments. We've all done them all. I've done hundreds of them. And if we're going to be doing those bake sales, please, for the love of all that is holy, let the people know they can give real estate as well. Now, our book, Real Estate is Hot, Fundraising is Not, we actually do a book club. It happens on Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern. For any of you that want to hang out after this presentation, you're welcome to sit in on the book club. It is free and it is available to any and everyone. The book itself is the workbook. It's the pamphlet. It's what teaches us about gifts of real estate and how to leverage them in the community. Dr. Russell James is a foremost authority. He teaches at Texas Tech. He has written the foreword for this book, and he says it better than I can. The numbers are clear. Transformational philanthropy comes from major assets like real estate. But friends, numbers aren't the problem. The problem is action. People can understand the idea and nod their head at the numbers, but then they do nothing. They don't act. The disease is inertia and fear, and the cure, you're reading it when you read the book. You're absorbing it when you're here with us learning how charitable gifting works. So let's get into this information. There are 1.5 million nonprofits in this country. 1.5 million, give or take. Some places say 1.3, some places say 1.8. We cut it in the middle, 1.5 million. And less than 0.5% of them take real estate. The fact is, if you had $500 in one hand and the deed to a property worth $500,000 in the other hand, 99.9% of the time, the nonprofit will take the cash and say no to the real estate for a lot of good reasons we're going to talk about here today. And there are three ways that a property owner can help a nonprofit through the proceeds from real estate. And we're going to explain these three ways to you today. And the first two ways you could imagine. Now, the first way is if the donor of this property, let's call it $1 million condo in Florida, and let's say that there is a church in New Jersey, and this church has a donor that loves them and has $1 million condo in Florida. And the donor says, hey, I want to donate this real estate. And the church says, well, go sell it and then give us the proceeds. This is very, very common. And here's the problem with this. The government receives the most this way. They receive tax money that they don't have to receive, but they do this way. The donor receives the least amount of tax advantages. The nonprofit receives the least amount of the donation. Friends, this is just old-fashioned. It's outdated. Frankly, it's lazy, and it's really just because people don't know any better. This is the worst way. And so often when we do this presentation, people will say, oh, I know somebody who sold their house last month, last year, and they gave proceeds. And we say, please don't give that advice to people anymore. Worst way. The second way, let's say that donor's got that condo in Florida, and let's say that donor tries to give the condo directly to the church in New Jersey. Here's why this is the hardest way. Because that nonprofit would be required to pay off any mortgages on this property. They would be required to give the donor cash up front to take title to the property if the donor wanted cash. Let's say the donor says, you know what, I want half of it to go to my church and half of it to go to this children's nonprofit. If that's the case, church is doing all this work and giving half the money to another nonprofit. That church will be responsible for the maintenance and the upkeep and the sewer and the HOA fees. And worst of all, they would be tied up for months and months. All of their time, talent, and treasure would be going into trying to figure out this deal with this condo down in Florida. And the fact is, 99.9% will not do it. Frankly, they shouldn't do it. It is confusing. It is risky. They don't have that kind of money just laying around. So this is the hardest way. Now, these are all the reasons why that's the hardest way. The fact is, these nonprofits don't have the expertise. They don't have a real estate team. They don't have an attorney and a realtor and a title company sitting around on retainer. And friends, even if Toni and I sit on their board, matter of fact, I sit on the board of a nonprofit with a very good friend of mine, I would never counsel them to try to take their own real estate because of this second bullet point. What if there is a mortgage to be paid off? Who is going to put their name on the water bill? Who's going to pay the landscaper, et cetera, et cetera? It's just too expensive. Real estate diverts attention. You know, what if this is a nonprofit for children? And, you know, they're wanting to help children that have been abused or that aren't getting the right education or that are just flat out hungry and need to be fed every day. The last thing they need to be doing is diverting their mission to trying to figure out some condo in Florida. Now, some nonprofits have heard of gifts of real estate, and maybe they've had a bad experience or they've heard of a bad experience. God knows when it comes to real estate, there's stories of bad experiences everywhere you go. And there are some, remember we said 99.9% won't, but there are some that do take real estate, and they take it on a very limited basis. If the property is local in their hometown, if the property is vacant, if the property has no mortgage. In other words, it has to fit in a really small box. But the majority of nonprofits have it written right in their gift acceptance policies. No way, no how. We don't take stocks. We don't take cryptocurrency. We definitely don't take real estate. So overall, this has been so risky that even though it's been around for 100 years, 99.9% are missing out on this funding. But the real reason they're missing out on it is because they don't know about the third option. Now, the first option was if the donor sells the property and gives the proceeds. That's the worst way. Uncle Sam gets too much. Second way is if they try to give the property to the church. That's the hardest way. Time, talent, and treasure. They don't have it. Now, here is another example of a beautiful estate. Please don't have the scarcity mindset that you don't know anyone who would donate real estate. The fact is, we've never had this conversation before, so how could we possibly know what is in the heart of the people who love us and want to support our communities? We just don't know. These folks are donating property. They're in their 60s, 70s, 80 years old. They are limiting, they're bringing their estate down. They're making it simpler to pass on to the next generation. Give people a choice. Let them know what their options are. Now, here's the third way. We at the Real Agents of Change call this the win-win-win way because everyone wins. Our group has formed partnerships with different real estate team experts. One of them we refer to as a specialized nonprofit. And this nonprofit takes title to that condo in Florida. They pay off the mortgage if there is one. They take on responsibility. This is why the third way is risk-free for that church in New Jersey, for that children's rescue place, for the animals, for the veterans, for the universities, for the 1.5 million nonprofits. This is risk-free. There is no money out of their pocket to handle these transactions. Let me say that again. It doesn't cost anything. Now, I know if you're like most people at this point, you're thinking, this is too good to be true. What's the catch? Please don't get into that mindset. I know that so many people are taking advantage of others, and it is a sad world we live in. But when we ask for help and the good Lord puts it in front of us, let's just keep an open mind, because this way there is capital available. What if that condo got damaged by Hurricane Ian and it needs some work? That's okay. The church isn't paying for it. The property does not need to be free and clear. It can have a mortgage. The donor does not have to donate the full value. What if it's $1 million condo and they say, you know, I really love my church in Jersey, but I don't love them that much. I want to get $500,000 in my own pocket. They can have the other $500,000. That's okay. We do that too. The donor receives the full array of tax benefits immediately. There aren't months and months and months of board meetings and dragging it out. It is immediate. And I'm hitting my little button, and there it goes. The nonprofit world. So this way, the donor gets the most benefit. The nonprofit world gets the maximum amount of donation, and 100% of the 1.5 million nonprofits are eligible for how this works. This is the win-win-win way. The nonprofit gets the most money. The donor gets to leave legacy and get the tax benefits they want, and real estate agent gets paid a full commission to list these properties. So this team of experts, the specialized nonprofit, once again, they take title. You see, in order for the donor to get the tax advantages they're looking for, the property must exchange hands with a 501c3. And a property cannot exchange hands if it's got a mortgage or a lien on it. So they take title, they take financial responsibility. There is no risk to the nonprofit that is getting the proceeds. There are no out-of-pocket expenses, And there's no need for that church to change their gift acceptance policies because they're not accepting real estate. They don't even need to know the address of the property. That's how far removed they are from the whole situation. They simply receive the proceeds as a grant when the property sells. And it allows all nonprofits to benefit from real estate. See, other nonprofits are doing it. $9 billion a year is being donated. Average donation, $600,000. That's an average of about 18,000 donations a year. So it is happening. Now, we've said less than 0.5% actually take real estate. And we just want to show you some of these because if you have any interest in funding your nonprofits, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, then you should do your due diligence. You should Google it. You should search it out, check it out. Go Google donating real estate, how to donate real estate. And when you do, you'll see all of these logos and more. And the fact is, the donors on your donor list, the people in your community who have an uncle out west or a sister down south or someone that they know with real estate that could be donated on your behalf, when those people, when they start Googling and looking for ways to save taxes and looking for ways to liquidate their real estate, these will pop up. And Cars for Kids, as an example, is one that most people know. So I use it as an example. They also take real estate now. And if that uncle of your donor or your friend who has real estate out west, if he finds Cars for Kids, he's going to get the tax deduction he's wanting. But here's the problem for you and your community. You're not getting the proceeds. Your real estate friends not getting paid a full commission and being able to buy their kids something for Christmas. The communities that you care about are missing out because these folks are smart enough to put it out there to let people know. We're saying, let's do that for you. You're going to see several examples of real estate that's been donated. This is a golf course that was donated to this university in Illinois. It's happening all over the country. Now, your donors, the people that are on the donor list of your church or your soup kitchen or your veterans shelter, they need to know that you can benefit. They don't know. They don't know that you can benefit from real estate. And guess what? They're on other donor lists. If they've ever given you $10, $20, $50, $100, they've given it to somebody else too. And they are going to learn about this. And they might as well learn about it from you and your community because they are looking for tax deductions. They are eager to leave a legacy. They are planning their gifts, their planned giving and their legacy. They're planning it right now. They just need to know that you can benefit from it. So here's what happens. These donations of real estate come in for your nonprofit, for your community, and we take it from there. Friends, this is just like when you go to the page on the website for any nonprofit that has the button that says donate. You click on that button and you can put in your Visa, your MasterCard, your American Express. And 3 days later, that church, that university, that soup kitchen receives 97% of your donation. It's called credit card processing. And now there can be another button about real estate to have the same process happen. It's going to take a little bit longer than 3 days, but it's also going to be 97, 98% of 600,000 instead of $600. Here's a story to explain how this works. Berkeley Humane Society, December of 21, a gentleman came to the table and he had, that should say 22 on it, by the way, April 22, I got to fix that. He donated the property in December of 21. He needed a tax deduction. Now, Berkeley had tried to figure this out, just like any of the other 1.5 million nonprofits out there that don't take real estate. It wouldn't have happened in 2 weeks like it did with our team, but it did. The donor got his tax benefit within 2 weeks. Then the lots were put on the market, and $406,000 went to Berkeley Humane Society. Now, they said, what? How much? From what? Can we do more of that? Yes, you can. So, friends, here's what they did. They picked up the phone and they told people, hey, thank you so much for your $50 a month. Every penny counts. You're a blessing. Listen, we don't know how this works, but real estate is being donated. As a matter of fact, we just got some real estate donated, and it is making a difference in how we save the lives of animals. We just want you to know, if you have any real estate, we can benefit. And a second donation came to the table from a woman who was left a property that she was never going to live in. And when that sold, they received over $600,000. Now, this is not pie in the sky. This is not pro forma. We think this is what would happen. This is what did happen and what is happening. So, one nonprofit, 2 donations, 6-month time, over $1 million. And if you go to their website now, they have a really fancy real estate page, but they didn't have that page until they told people. That's all you have to do is tell people, because this property can come in from anywhere. So think about it. In our example, it's a church in New Jersey. The condo is in Florida. It could have been a ranch in Texas. It could have been a strip mall in California. It could have been a house right there in New Jersey. The point is, it can come from anywhere, can be any size. Average donation, $600,000. We have stories about $39,000. But boy, what a difference that would make for the average nonprofit. And any type. It's residential, it's commercial, it's raw land, it's investment property, it's primary residence, it's all of them. And this is creating funding right now. There are people right this red hot minute that are donating real estate as we speak. And then there are people sitting in on presentations like this and learning about it. And maybe it's something good for them next year. And there are others of us who are teaching rooms full of financial advisors and rooms of realtors and rooms of nonprofits that are planning for 3 and 5 and 10 years down the road. This is another example, Martin Luther King Community Center. That's a nice building, donated 2 years ago. This couple, when people say to me, gosh, Cammie, it sounds great and everything, but who would really donate real estate? The people that you want to know. The people that can transform your community. The friend of a friend of a friend through Facebook or email. In other words, the people that are on the donor list, these folks had gotten to a point in their life around 70 years of age where they needed to simplify their estate, and they donated $129 million at one whack of real estate. Now, these are some examples. So that first slide where I showed you Cars for Kids, those were those tiny handful. There's a couple hundred of them around the country out of 1.5 million that have their own real estate team and do their own real estate transactions. But friends, what about you? What about the others that don't have a real estate team like these guys? Universities, soup kitchens, public radio, public TV. Recognize any of these? Anybody know a Girl Scouts or a Boys and Girls Club? AARP, United Way? See, these 2 slides are full of nonprofits that don't have a real estate team, but what they have is the same team we do. It is a third-party real estate processing organization that does nothing but take real estate on your behalf. And through a contract, it says right up front, your nonprofit is getting 50%, and that soup kitchen's getting 50%. However, it works out. These folks have benefited from gifts of real estate that they never even knew the address of, and you can too. Did you know? And I'm just going to pop all these numbers up. This is all about business, consumers, customers, clients. 87, this last number, 87% of consumers, when polled numerous times for years, have said they will work with the businesses that are socially impactful. And the reason we show you this is because nonprofits need to understand that instead of just asking businesses to sponsor them and give them money, what if we actually turn the tide? What if we actually said to the businesses, you know, customers, consumers, they'll choose you over the competition when you're working with us, when you're socially responsible. So what we do here at the Real Agents of Change is we bring the for-profit together with the nonprofit. So when we pool all of our resources and relationships, everybody's revenue rises. So what's next, you might be asking? All sounds great, Cami. What do we do next? Don't waste time. This has been happening for 100 years, but less than 0.5%, less than 0.001% of nonprofits are taking real estate. But that's changing because the world is a new place and new situations and solutions and systems come out. And that's what we've created. And people are learning about it every day. And the donors in your community are on other donor lists. They're going to learn about this. Don't let them donate their real estate to somebody in another city or state when it could have been you. Do your research. We want you to do your research. We want you to read up on it. We want you to understand who we are and how this works. Matter of fact, we want to give $1 billion a year to the nonprofit world through our real estate agents and to the nonprofits that we're playing with. We can't do this by ourselves. We need you to understand how it works. Communication is everything. This is my contact information. This is my fiance and the VP of my company, our company. And we want to educate. He loves teaching this to churches. He's faith-based. He's a veteran. He owns a rescue animal. I personally come from being adopted. I come from alcoholism. I come from different types of discrimination for females, etc. So my point is that there's a lot of things going on in the world that nonprofits focus on, and we cover a lot of them just personally wanting to see those issues being attended to. Just take the funding. We say this in all seriousness, but in a little bit of jest. We say to people all the time, just take the money. The donors in your community want to know their options. Just tell them, just take the money. It's not something that you need a college degree in. You just got to tell people and continue to make a difference. That's what's next. Stay in your lane. Do what you do best. We have a saying here at the Real Agents of Change, do what you do best and refer the rest. And what we're saying here is that you have a credit card processing company. You chose them from 1,000 that you could have chose from. Now you need a real estate processing company. And we're it. We're pretty much it. So here is a link where you can get a ton of resources and get some questions answered and watch 14 case studies. And you can get the free PDF of the book, Real Estate is Hot, Fundraising is Not. And we do a book club. on Mondays at 4 p.m. Eastern at this link. And I'll make sure that you have all of these. We're recording this. If you're seeing the recording of it, this won't matter to you. But for those of you who are here with us right now, the book club happens in 30 minutes, and you're more than welcome to sit in. And I would love to open it up for any questions that any of you have. And I'm just going to pop down in the chat. While you're thinking of your question, I'll pop in these different links. Anyone? Sometimes I'll say, was it so good that you just learned it all? Or was it so confusing that you just can't even imagine what you would ask? And people will say, no, Cammie, you did such a great job. We don't have any questions, but I know that's not true. So. Nancy, what did you like best about what your little girl is doing?
I really think it's amazing, the information that people don't know. Being able to have somebody to sit down and talk to get a better explanation. I mean, I've had asked Toni, how does nonprofit work? You hear people talk about a nonprofit business. They're in nonprofits. They started up these new businesses that are nonprofit. And my thought was, okay, well, if it's nonprofit, how are you making money? So that's when Toni, was telling me a few things about how this information works, as far as supporting other, well, I guess you could call it a business, like the food pantries and churches and things like that. I didn't have a clue as to what nonprofit really meant, but listening to you explain these things, it sounds really, I'll say interesting, but maybe educational, to know exactly now, if you had an interest in starting a nonprofit, you showed the do's and the don'ts. And most of the don'ts is what I just kind of figured, like, okay, let me just say this, you were saying how you do the wrong things and how you do the right things, because I never understood, if you sell property, how is that going to benefit not only, well, I wouldn't say me, because my interest would be starting a nonprofit, but how is that going to help the nonprofit organization? Right. So, you gave quite a bit of good information. And I know there's a few things that once I sit down with Toni and we just have that one-on-one conversation, knowing now some of the things that she was trying to explain to me, but it just didn't comprehend.
Well, yeah. I just have to say, my mother said to me years ago, she said, now this is before I even knew about charitable real estate, but I've been a speaker and a trainer or whatever for years. And she said, do people really pay you? Do they really pay you to talk? Now, my mother was very Southern. She was from Georgia. She said, I'll pay you to shut up. And I said, right in that moment, I said, Mom, thank you so much for giving me some story that I can tell from the stage.
Yeah.
So good for you that you're even willing to listen to your daughter, because my mother would never listen. But seriously, so nonprofit, by the way, if you come to the master class, which is a 3-hour deep dive to really dig deep, but nonprofit really just means that they've been given a designation by the government that they don't pay taxes. They don't pay income tax. But a 501c3 is a nonprofit that when you give them a donation, you actually get a tax deduction. Not all nonprofits give a tax deduction if you give them money. So for example, Toni and I pay our board of realtor dues, and the board of realtors is a nonprofit, but it's a 506. So they don't pay taxes, but we don't get a deduction for giving them money as a deduction to a nonprofit. We get a deduction because it's a business expense to be a part of that organization. So I've learned a lot in
Yeah.
all of this too, Nancy. And what I've learned is a 501c3 and a 508, which is a church, are the only two nonprofit designations that give a tax deduction when you donate. And in our case, when it comes to real estate, which is an appreciated asset, it's an asset you paid $100,000 for. Now it's worth $500,000. You got $400,000 of capital gains that the government wants their money for. But when you donate it, you don't pay those capital gains. And there's several other tax benefits. I'm not a CPA, I'm not an accountant, I'm not an attorney. I just know the concept. And so what we do is we just share the concept. We let people know that this is even an option. And then we refer them to their CPA or their financial advisor for those conversations. But here's what I'll say. Financial advisors are where 65% of these donations start, because they have 500, 5,000 clients, past clients, people that they know want to be philanthropic and that they know need a tax deduction. But what they don't know is a nonprofit that will take the property.
Right.
That's where we come in.
Right.
Questions?
That's key.
Confusion? How has the 501c3 changed prior to 2022? Yolanda, let's talk about that a little bit. Ask me in a different way. I'm not sure if I understand the question.
I think when Donald Trump was in office, he made it used to be, expanded, no limit.
On a
And
lifetime.
on lifetime on the 501c3, right?
How has that changed?
And I think I have heard that he had changed it in 2001, 2002. So I was wondering how.
I'm not
Was
sure. I'm not sure exactly what you're referring to, but the conversation that we have, we aren't here to teach people about 501c3. We're not here to help you get your 501c3 license, and all, that's do what you do best and refer the rest, as we like to say. I just know the basics of what a 501c3 is so that I can have an intelligent conversation about how the United States government in 1917 put together the tax deduction. And the tax deduction is to a 501c3 or a 508 with a church. And therefore, when you donate something that's an appreciated asset, you save even more on taxes. That's the extent really of my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I do know people that can help you start a 501c3 on all kinds of levels. I know people that will help you for free because that's what their 501c3 does. And I know people that charge $25,000 to coach you into a 501c3. We're here to help your 501c3 get funded.
Understand. Great. Thank you.
Well, friends, if there's no questions, I will be, Maria, you got a question? I see your pretty face now. The camera came on, but your microphone didn't.
I'll ask Toni, talk to her a little bit more about it. Thank you.
So, Marie, how you feel about that 100% commission?
You know how I feel about it. I feel great about it. That's amazing.
Exactly. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about, right?
I take it you're a real estate agent.
Oh, yeah. For quite a long time. I think 19 or 20 years.
Well, I don't even need to know where you are, what marketplace you're in. I can tell you with 1000% certainty, there aren't any realtors in your market that know how this works.
That sounds terrific.
And well, it is. Now that means we have to do some educating. We're the ones that get to we get to bring it to your church and your veterans group and your soup kitchen. There's some education that happens, but the fact is there aren't any realtors to compete with you on this right now. Now, our goal is by 2025 to have charitable real estate specialists in every city in this country. So I think of it as short sales. You know, you've been around as long as I have in real estate, back when, you know, 2003, 2004, when the short sale conversation started coming up. And I remember I had a client who said, hey, my daughter owes more on her house than it's worth. I need you to help her. And I said to her, what the hell do you want me to do with that? She owes more than it's worth. I can't help her. And she said, well, back in the 80s, we had this thing called a short sale. You should check it out. And I Googled, Marie, I Googled short sale. And the only thing that came up was Victoria's Secrets was having a sale on shorts. But then a couple of years later, everybody's doing short sales and everybody's stuck on the phone with the bank for 4 hours trying to negotiate short sales. So just like then, right now, people don't know what it is, but it's just a matter of a couple of years and everybody will be like, oh yeah, my mom's that's her specialty. That's what she does. Charitable real estate. Yeah, that's how my church built their new hall. It was from a gift of real estate across the country.
Well, you made it, you know, I've heard of donations, but it sounded like they sell it and then they give the money to the organization or whatever. But you explained a much easier way and how the agent can benefit. So that makes it sound a little bit more inviting.
Amen. Yes.
Now, if that property owner, if they want to hire you and they sell the property with you as their agent, after it's all said and done, they can still take that money and give it to the nonprofit. They could still use you. But the problem is when they do it that way, they're getting that much less of a tax benefit. Because just for example, if it's $1 million property and you get a 6% commission, there's 60,000 right there off the bat that they're not able to write off of their tax, off their adjusted gross income. But when they donate it, that money is also part of their donation. So there's a lot of little nuances like that. Ultimately, what we want you to know is the specialized nonprofit that we work with, they are your client. They're the ones that are going to hire you at a full commission. That's why we can guarantee it. Because when John and Mary donate that condo, they're off the deed. They're not your client. Their kids aren't coming in telling you how to do your job. It's the specialized nonprofit that pays you your full commission.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to go get ready for the book club. The second link that I put in, the meetin.com/Cami, is the book club. It's every Monday, 4 p.m. Eastern, where we go over the book. The first link I put in, therock.com/hot, is where you can get all those resources that I talked about. And one last thing, since we have a realtor here let me show you this last slide, because another thing that's next is to come to the masterclass. It can be to get certified and to get on our map of all the others that are certified. So let me show you this one last slide, and then I'm going to let you all go. So on our website, people who want to become a specialist, is just like any other designation. Realtors have a ton of designations. Most professions do. $400, typical annual thing for that. But what we have is a 50% off code for people that we feel inspired to share that with. So Marie, if you want to write down that code, Hot Rock, notice how it's spelled, RAOC, stands for Real Agent of Change. And Toni can help you with that. But Toni, that's the code that we give to give a 50% off for the specialist. And my fiance says all the time, the realtors need to get certified. The realtors need to get certified. And I'm like, babe, you have to let the nonprofits know. They need to know how this works too. They need to be on our map. They need to be educated. So it's not just realtors, financial advisors, community leaders, fundraisers themselves, all come and get certified and become part of the tribe. So that's the sales pitch. Thank you all for coming. Toni, you're a blessing. I'll send you the recording of this shortly, and please feel free to share with these good folks and anybody else that needs to see it.
I sure will. Thank you again, Cammie. Thank you, everybody, for
Cammie.
showing up.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Thank
All
Bye-bye.
right. Bye-bye.